So I've been dealing with quandary on the whole AI front. And the quandary is, do I go buy a PC with an NVIDIA graphics card so I can do CUDA and use the standard tool chain that most people are using, or I guess a lot of people are, it's probably most. Or do I stay on Apple Silicon and just start using, or, instead of buying a PC, get Mac Minis? Price wise, the Mac Mini, a maxed out M4 Mac with 64 gig of RAM and a terabyte hard drive, is like $2,200. A PC will be with a, well, it gets into which NVIDIA graphics card do you get and how many of them do you get, because there's a price range, but in general, from what I can tell, you want at least a 16 gigabyte graphics card, at least one of them. And so generally, what I'm looking at is $2,500 to $3,000 for the PC, and then on top of that, you get into a whole bunch of questions. Do I go with the AMD Ryzen processor, or do you go with an Intel i9? How much memory, 64 gig or 128 gig? The big advantage I see with the PC is you could put 128 gig of RAM into it, which is huge. It's, to me, mind-blowing. But all these questions, and then but you have the configuration issues. So you're going to stand up Linux, a flavor of Linux, Ubuntu or whatever, or I personally like Red Hat, but I don't know what the state of Red Hat is these days. And you've got to configure it and get all the drivers right. I've just things. Whereas with the Mac, right now I'm running on a Mac Studio. It has an M2 Max or the M2 Ultra, whatever it is. It's 64 gig. It's whatever the maximum I could buy at the time of the Studio. And the machine is fantastic, and it's a general purpose machine. It does everything quite well. And, and I'll, be upfront at this point. My leaning is towards just staying on Apple Silicon. I've discovered that Apple has shipped a Python library called the MLX framework, which allows you to run stuff on the GPUs in the Apple Silicon processor, or on Apple, I don't know what you call it, but anyway, but it uses the GPUs in the Mac. And I'm getting pretty high token rates. I've seen up to 800 in some cases. It depends upon what I'm doing. It's not universal. And say I get a PC with, a big processor and a bunch of memory, and I go with I think it's the 5090, RTX 5090 graphics card. I think they have 16 gig of RAM. That likely will actually outperform the Mac, just its dedicated hardware. But that's the only thing. Well, I could go into Bitcoin mining, but it's not a general purpose machine. It's really very dedicated towards AI workloads, or I guess gaming, but I game on console. I keep games off my workstations because I don't need the distractions. I'm great at distracting myself already. So if I get an M4 Mac Mini, I throw it on the shelf next to me. It'll be headless, and I can just run workloads on it. And you put Docker on there. I can run build servers. I can run anything I want on there. As a matter of fact, I've got a M1 Mac Mini in the other room that probably is going to migrate in here as well. It can run all of the same stuff, and it can also be general purpose and just do whatever I need. And it's kind of appealing to me. So interested to hear what your thoughts are on which direction to go. But like I said, at this point, I'm kind of leaning towards just going with Apple Silicon. Forgot to mention, in addition to the MLX framework, there's Core ML, which I've just learning about it, it's a little more complicated to use. You have to convert the model to run with Core ML. And what happens is behind the scenes, it will decide whether to run models using the AI processor that's in Apple Silicon, or use the GPU, or use the CPU. So you don't have complete control over that, but it does with Core ML. You do begin to use all of those AI cores that Apple has put on there, and it'd be really cool if Apple would open source that stuff or make the APIs public so that people can start developing stuff against. Because, like, for instance, you can't really see what the activity is with those cores. You can see what the GPUs are doing, you can see what the CPU's doing, but I guess you can't see what the AI stuff is going on. That's too bad. But at the same time, as I'm building out my framework, I'll start using Core ML. I'll figure out how to use it so that I can take advantage of that, which to me just makes the Mac even more interesting as the platform to build my AI practice on top of. So again, I'm interested to see, hear, your feedback. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show what I've been doing for this past week with the MLX framework, just to show you what it's capable of. All right, here we are on my workstation. And first thing is I want to show you, this is the repo for my MLX lab. I've been working on a bunch of stuff, and I'm basically putting everything up. I think I have all my secrets hidden, I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to have keys to rotate. So, anyway, it's GitHub, Jake Watkins, MLX Lab is where you can find it. I'll put a link in the description. The first one that I'm going to show you is, this is where I started. It's just chat. And all it really does, we're using Apple's MLX library to load a model. And what's really cool is you just give it a path to a model hosted in Hugging Face, and it'll take care of downloading it. It'll cache it. It takes care of everything for you. Really nice and convenient. Which I realize there's some danger there. You don't know what's really going on. But to get things started, it's wonderful. So to come in down here in this loop, and yes, I kind of vibe coded this thing together with the help of Copilot, or GitHub Copilot. But you can see on this section, line 80 down, it's just MLX LM dot generate, and you pass in the model, the tokenizer, your prompt, and off it goes. So let's check it out. I'm going to move the mic so it's going to make noise, so I can actually type. All right. What am I doing? We're going to go into chat. And I believe it's just LLM chat. And you give it the name. I've been using IBM's Granite model, and I really like it. It's been a pretty good model. It has tool use, and I like it. So hit enter, and of course we get that. Oh yeah. What is it? Source bin activate. So we got to get the Python virtual environment up, and then we can go, and you see it goes, and it's already cached that model because it's the main model I've been using, and you have prompt, and so we'll type, how are you today? Boom. There it is. What's funny is it gave me a different answer when I was rehearsing this. It was like, oh, I've been having a productive day. All right. So if it is 95 Fahrenheit, what is the temperature in Celsius. Did I spell that right? So there it is. 95 translates to 35 degrees Celsius. Cool. So that's just a very basic, pulled in a model and, start working with it. But what I really wanted to be able to do is talk to MCP servers, which MLX library already has it. But when I was playing around, and you'll find in this, in the repo, there's chat MCP. I'm not going to demo it. It works, but I was running into some problems, and I was like, okay. So I went and read the spec, and I worked with Copilot, and we wrote our own MCP host. So I read the spec, I wrote out, you'll find how the prompt I used to create these things. I always call it requirements.md. And so I spelled out what I wanted. And some of this, the very top is me telling Copilot what I want. And then the bottom part, some of it is Copilot, some of it is me. Back and forth, working together to get this spec'd out. And then I had it generate the plan, and then it generated all my code. And I turned this into a reusable Python library, which I pulled into LLM host and LLM CLI. So LLM host, the next one that we'll look at, deactivate. Did I spell that right? I did. Look at me, big boy. LLM host. So we'll do bin source activate, and then it's LLM-host. And so you see it load in. We've got the file system. Do I not have... Yeah, it has the Brave thing. So I can tell it, what are today's news headlines? And you'll see it go off, and it uses the Brave web search, and it comes back and summarizes out 5 news headlines for me. Pretty cool. What caused all of this was trying to use that file system MCP server. Somehow the version that ChatMCP pulled had a bug in it, and it would blow up all the time. I couldn't get it to work. And actually, so in config, I have this big system prompt, and in it, somewhere, right here, use the exact parameters listed. So when your MCP server loads, the host will query it to find out what its capabilities are. It's like, using Swagger. So it calls it, and it comes back and says, well, here are all the functions, and there's other things besides just tools. There's resources, so you could have like a table, the periodic table of elements could be a resource that your MCP server serves up, or the resource could be like a query to a database or something like that. And then there's also reusable prompts, or just prompts that your MCP server can serve up to the host to make available to whatever application is using it. So anyway, the file system MCP server requires path instead of file name, and for some reason Granite kept trying to use file name. So we had to make our system prompt be very specific that you have to go look at the input schema coming back from the tool and make sure you use those parameters. That was one of the things that we did to fix this. But it also turned out getting the version of the file system MCP server that didn't have a bug in it probably made the biggest difference. Anyway, let me think. So we can do something like, do the same thing. What were today's news headlines? Please summarize them and save them in a file called headlines.txt. Do we already have it? Well, I wrote it so it's supposed to overwrite. So it goes out. Hopefully this works. Sometimes it doesn't follow directions real good. So you see it went out. Oh, it did get it. So where's headlines? Hello? Where did I tell the MCP server? Chat MCP. Oops. Well, I don't see the file, so I'm sorry, but I don't have access to the necessary directory to save the file. So there's a problem. So I keep running into things like this. But you can see that it actually did put everything together right, but the configuration I have in my MCP server, this is the directory it was supposed to write to, and it's not happy about something about that. That's okay. We're good with this. So this is, with the code in here, it gives you everything you need to have a, pull in an LLM, load MCP servers, have them all hooked up, and then whatever it is you're prompting will work. It's kind of cool. So what I wanted for what I'm really doing, I needed a way to do this from the command line. So we go, why are you, not in the right window. So we get out of there, go deactivate, and then go to CLI. And, that's interesting. Well, so here's the cool thing. This essentially LLM CLI is essentially in production, if you will. So if I go to my temp directory, you can see I have an MCP server and I have the config, and I have this weather prompt. So let's cat weather prompt. So I basically have it go straight to weather.gov, and this is the GPS lat long for Corinth, Texas. And so weather.com will return the weather, and we tell it that we want JSON and how we want it formatted. So if I run this LLM host, or LLM granite minus PF weather prompt minus O today's weather.json. So there it goes. Hopefully this works. Be embarrassing if it doesn't. So there's there's some funny details here that I'll show you in a different project. I was like, well, here's the thing. The web scraper I'm using, I had to get an OpenAI key for it so that it would work. And what happens is my LLM does what it does and goes, oh, I need to go to this web page to get this stuff. So it calls web scraper. Web scraper goes and scrapes the web page and then feeds it to OpenAI, who then converts it into Markdown, sends it back to me, or to my LLM, which then takes and extracts the data from it. And it's like, okay, just a second. And it turns out that weather.gov has an API. So you could just write a curl statement to go get the weather forecast for today. So I ended up writing a script just to do that. But I have a prompt that'll do it, and we can do, today's weather. And so there is the output, which you see how it says here is today's weather. That's not actually JSON, is it? So in the PowerShell script that uses this, well, I changed the prompt so that in the prompt, I tell it to only output the JSON and not to include, not include anything else. And that worked. So at this point, though, with this command line tool, I can just write, should put it in quotes. And off it'll go, and makes a tool call, gets the results back, and there's my news. So you can do this from the command line, which I make of it what you will. I'm going to use this to create an agent that actually uses both the Brave Search MCP server to go find stuff, and then uses the web scraper to dig deeper into those news headlines to create an agent that basically goes and scans the web for me, finds relevant news, digs a little deeper to actually get me more than just the headline, and give me a summary of all of the things so that I can very quickly just know what's going on in the world. So this is what my Thanksgiving vacation was spent doing, and this is part of the reason why I'm now just kind of leaning towards, this stuff's running pretty fast from my point of view. It's running fast enough to be useful. It's not, and it's just one person. It's for me. So I'm kind of like, why spend more money buying another workstation at this point? I don't plan to actually even buy the Mac Mini until sometime next year when I've gone a little further. There's some other stuff in here. Lab, let me think. This one, is doing I'd found out about MLX and that you could do fine tuning with it. I haven't dug much deeper into that. We'll follow up as I've got a separate project for this that will actually involve it's going to be an email agent, and I've got tens of thousands of emails that have been stored up, and I'm going to build an agent that can look at the email and figure out and classify what each email is, and then I'll have an N8N workflow, or actually a bunch of different N8N workflows depending upon what the email gets classified as. And, in cases where a response should be sent, it'll take care of that. In cases like of bills, it'll update a thing for me to remind me to take care of it, and just whatever. And, my idea is to be able to do the same thing with social media and, so on. Just creating an assistant that, makes my life easier and allows me to focus on, whatever it is I want to focus on. Oh my God. I am the world's worst YouTuber. I just recorded the entire close to this video and went to stop the phone from recording and found out that it had stopped recording. That's me checking to make sure I'm still recording because I don't want to do this again. I have a small rig monitor, but it turned off and I was too lazy to hook it back up. Anyway, that's why, like, you'll see me other times looking up and down is me checking the monitor. Anyway, so I just demonstrated, did the screencast, showed you my MLX lab and the tools I've built so far. So I spent the whole week of Thanksgiving messing around with this stuff. There's a bunch of home improvement stuff. My house, I've been putting in switches and other devices. Like my door lock is now automated. I've got an Echo Bee doorbell, and all of it's all integrated in the HomeKit. I'm about to climb up in the attic and rewire some lights so that I can put switches on them as well, on these other lights in this house. It's an old house. It's built in the early 80s. Anyway. So I spent my Thanksgiving working on, learning Python and getting learning my way around this MLX stuff and learning the MCP protocol. I feel like I've done a pretty good job. I'm pretty comfortable with this. I've got a really useful tool in the LLM CLI tool I built. And from that, we're going to continue on. I'm going to build out my digital valet, which is a separate repo up there. It's already doing a bunch of stuff for me. And now that I have LLM CLI, I'm going to be able to go even further because now I can start, going to data sources, pulling data back, feed it through an LLM, and have it do whatever it needs to do with it and update the report that it generates for me. So I'm kind of excited about that. The next step is I'm going to build. I have stuff started that is going to get all of the email out of all the different email accounts I've got. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. There's thousands, tens of thousands of emails that I'm going to pull down, and then I've got to figure out how to turn that into training data, and then we'll fine tune a model, and then from that, with that model, we'll build N8N workflows that will classify the emails and then select which workflow should run in response to a particular type of email that's been sent to me on my different accounts. That's the vision. We'll get that done pretty quick. So anyway, the MLX thing is, for me, is kind of the thing that has me sold on just staying the course on Apple Silicon and not buying a GPU. I realize the GPUs will be faster in the long run, but I want to master what Apple hardware can do before I worry about going and getting a different tool to do things. I'm big on, master what you have before you go look shopping for something else. So that's where I'm at. It's been a long day, and hope you enjoyed this. If you got questions, I love talking to you guys and the ideas, your feedback. I'd love to hear it. So you have a good evening, and I'll see you around.